Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name's Chris,
And I'm Dave.
and we're coming to you from sunny Bedford, Nova Scotia at the VTScada studios. So today we're going to do a webinar for you entitled Welcome to VTScada Again. And basically, we're going to run down all of the features. If you're new to VTScada, this is a great way to get to know us really quickly. But if you have already seen this song and dance and you're already familiar with VTScada, we're going to deep dive on a couple of things that we don't normally talk about.
Yeah, there's a couple little things that aren't really forward selling points, but really actually kind of tie VTScada together. So we're going to talk a little bit about those technologies and then show some examples and always kind of wrap back to the fact that those are there and those really are part of what makes us a little bit different than some of the others that are offering, the same features or claims.
Right, exactly. So we're gonna tread a lot of familiar territory, but we're also gonna just sort of go over some things that we don't always talk about, partly because we're so familiar with them, we sometimes forget to even bring these things up to people. And when they come up at trade shows, people are like, whoa, I didn't know you did that, or I didn't know why that was special.
Yeah, and we're also going to do some live demos today, so stay tuned for those. So a little bit of higher risk drama.
Yeah, so you paid to watch the high diving act, and you're going to see the high diving act. So what that means is we'll have exactly 4 PowerPoint slides, and one of them you're looking at right now. Hopefully you can see us all. I think I have the camera on. And the rest of it we're going to all do through actual VTScada. So you'll actually get to see the software in action. So hopefully that'll be interesting. Let me just move this to the side here. So before we begin, the brief seatbelt demonstration, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see an interface to go to webinar, and on that you'll have a little place to, a little hand that you can raise your hand if you have a question, and underneath that there'll be a place to actually write a question. And Natasha Lutz is also on the line with us, and she will be sort of triaging all your questions, and she might feed some in, although I'm not wearing my headphones. You got your headphones on?
Yep.
Okay. So she might feed them in where appropriate, but more than likely we're going to answer them all at the end. And also there might be so many, there have been in the past, we are going to record them all, we're going to answer them all, write out all the answers, and send all the questions and answers to everybody along with the slides and along with the recording link.
Yep.
So that's basically the interface. And so this has been an interesting couple of years for Trihedral and VTScada. We've just, as of yesterday, won another award. This one's from Water Canada, yes, and the Water Next Award, and we won in the, which was it, the Waterway? It's so new, we haven't even studied the press release yet. So you can look that up on our website. We've got that up there. We also won the Canada's Top 100 Employers in a subcategory called Small and Medium Employers category. We just won that, and we can attest that this is a pretty great place to work. And we've had lots of people who have been here for a very long time as a result. And we also, in 2017, won Product of the Year from Plant Edge. Well, we won the Silver Award. Sorry, yeah. We didn't know it was a Silver Award until just a few months ago. It was there was a black tie dinner. And then, of course, in 2015, 17, and 18, we were recognized by Control Engineering Magazine in the HMI category.
Right, and I think one actually that isn't on here that I should mention is also Entrepreneur of the Year.
Oh, that's right.
For Glenn and Barry.
Yeah, they are the president and vice president of our company, respectively. And yeah, that's right. That was, they also got to don tuxedos.
That's right. Those are tuxedos worn out soon.
That's right. I never get to wear mine. Another special thing this year was that, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, we're running out of room to put thumbnails. I think we're going to have to give up on that. We opened up 2 new offices in Chicago, Illinois, and Los Angeles, California. So that gives us some nice coverage across the country. And we've got two great new people. Dan Naughton is that how you say it? Naughton?
Dan Naughton.
Dan Naughton. There we go. He works out of the Chicago office, and Adam. I was going to say Adam West. That's not who it is. And he's working out of the Los Angeles office. So 2 great guys. They were at ACE this year in Las Vegas, so they got to meet a lot of our customers for the first time.
Yeah,
we got to meet them.
A ton of people from those 2 areas show up at the booth.
Oh yeah, we don't often do trade shows that far out west, so that was a really great opportunity. So that's many of the special things that happened this year. And the other thing that's happened last year that's going to happen again,
VTScada Fest.
Now, I don't think either of us got to go last year.
No.
So this year we are both going to Orlando. It was such a success last year. Natasha really did the lion's share of the work of putting it together, and we had 300 people or so at a hotel in Orlando, and there were breakout groups, and there was special presentations, and there was a developers den, and also a night of entertainment out at Howl at the Moon. If you've ever been to that, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of construction feedback that we got was that people had so many sessions that they wanted to get to that it was difficult to navigate to all of the ones they wanted to see. So
that's a good problem.
You know, that was a great problem to have.
So an important thing to add is, so it'll be on the 16th and 17th of January. The 17th is my birthday. And make sure you pick up early bird tickets before October 31st. And you can see the prices there, because the standard, it goes up quite a bit after that. I just got a note from Natasha. Adam Bush. Thank you. Stage fright. So make sure you pick that up, and also book your hotels. That all happens online. You can go to our website and find the link to get your early bird tickets, and also to book your hotels. Last year, hotels actually sold out.
Yeah, the hotel is something booked sooner than later. Yeah. Hotels, luckily, are typically fairly easy to cancel. So
right. And so, I jumped the gun.
Right. So if you want, maybe jump back to talking about the native historian and some of the core components here. So do you want to bring up VTScada?
I do. Oops, it's not. So I'm going to close PowerPoint, and we will come back for one more slide. So now we're looking at VTScada. This is an application that we often use as a demo on our website and also at trade shows.
Right. So VTScada, what you're looking at here is kind of the thing. People see pictures of this. People see what's going on with VTScada. And one thing that was sort of different to us is that not everybody has the same perception of what we're talking about when we say sort of an all-inclusive SCADA software.
Right.
And I wanted to introduce this by talking about some of the two backbone technologies. One of them is the historian, and people hear us talk about how we have a historian and it's all built in, but it's not necessarily completely transparent how that actually ties into the rest of it and why that's really important. And the other one is one that we almost never talk about, which is the RPC manager. And both the historian and the RPC manager are our own technologies. They've been developed in-house. And so everything that's built into the product is really built around these two pieces of backbone. So
none of which you'll need to set up manually. If you install VTScada, you pull it off the FTP server and install it in about 3 minutes, those things will already be configured for you. You just have to start creating your IO.
Yeah, so the whole thing installs as one block. Now the historian itself is in a proprietary format that we have. Now that, even though it's proprietary format, that allows us to make all kinds of our own ways to connect to it and ways that that data can be quickly worked into other pieces of the product, and we can get more advanced kind of searching and attachments to tag and other things.
Right.
Also part of doing the notebooks and other things that you'll see today is all integrated into the historian. It's stuff that we can build in pretty quickly and easily because it's our own product. Right. And then the RPC manager is, I believe it's remote protocol.
Yes, and that's something that now we talk about historians a lot when we're speaking with customers and people who are interested. But the RPC manager, even though I hear that a lot around the office, that's something we bring up far less frequently. So what is special about what is the fact that we have our own RPG manager? How does that make us different?
Right. So our RPC manager, let's say it's built on our own technologies. Mm-hmm. And that's basically managing all the communications between the VTScada servers and other devices and stuff. So in that case, there's some big benefits that people often don't consider. And one of them is that as you're moving through your system, you know, we advertise that we don't leave you behind. If you want to upgrade, you can always upgrade your VTScada system.
Right.
That a lot of people fall back on is that they end up limited in moving through their system. And they maybe want to add a new server or do something else, and they end up bottlenecked by their OS or something else.
By their operating system, right?
By their operating system, yeah, that's right. So in our case, because we're using our own RPC manager, that the communications can be done through several different versions of Windows and other things. So you could have a you know, maybe a Windows 7 machine that you are using as a desktop as your first server. But as you're upgrading your plant, maybe now you think you're ready to move into a Windows 2016 server that you can actually get a little rack or something.
Right.
And you can add that and have the two of those communicate. Because it's all being done through our RPC manager, there's no problem to have different versions of Windows. So this also becomes really important with people who want to use things like panel PCs.
Right.
So they want to have different areas and different pieces. And in this case, you can actually break out the historians and other things, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Right.
So
what it means is if you buy a brand new server, you don't have to then install Vista on it because you already have Vista servers.
That's right, yeah. And like I say, with the panel PCs, a lot of the time, those are really built for Windows 10.
Right.
They're using this very specific OS. And if you have an older server or something, that you can still work with this. So the big key being that you want to be using the same version of VTScada.
Right. What role does the RPC manager play in terms of redundancy? We talk a lot about VTScada being because it's all integrated software. Every install can be a completely redundant node for everything, for your whole application. How does the RPC manager play into that?
Yeah, and we're going to get into the redundancy a little bit to actually show you an example of setting up a redundant system, and then we're going to set up a little bit of a schematic to show you some more advanced redundancy and how that might work. But the RPC manager really is core in doing all of the management between which servers talk to which devices, which servers are carrying the data as the primary for which historians, and which servers are talking to each other, basically.
That's a good point. It's something I've been hearing a lot lately when like at the trade shows, when I'm talking to customers and I tell them about redundancy and unlimited levels of server redundancy. They say, wait a minute, are all those servers, if I have like 3 redundant servers, are they all pounding on the RTUs? Are they all polling at the same time?
That's right. Yeah, it's an extremely important point, is that a lot of the time your RTUs and other things are on more limited bandwidth networks.
Right.
And as you add redundant servers, there's a lot of people out there whose technologies are basically going to poll each of those for each server.
Right.
So it's really like having a redundant system in the sense that it's like having 2 totally separate systems that are actually just doing a watchdog or something between the systems so that they know if one of them went down.
Right. So our server list determines who's doing the polling.
That's right. So our server list says that, okay, the device that's primary for those field devices is going to do the polling on those devices, and then the other servers will just get that data over presumably a higher speed network between the computers.
Just to synchronize, right?
Yeah, and also if one of the servers goes down, the other one will automatically come up, take those over, and when the other server comes back up, then the data is automatically synchronized back so that everything is always hot sync, and all of the failover and everything can be done very automatically, but also fairly complex on how you want to have that actually distributed.
Right, so it can be as simple as you want it to be or as complex as you need it to be.
I was talking to a system integrator the other day who had a system of actually a whole bunch of small devices, but because it was simple, he had those tied together to make, I think it was 12 redundant servers.
Right.
And so he probably had for each device, one server as a redundant historian for each. So he just basically have one backup for each. So he's not sending everybody else's information all the time.
Right.
But whether he wanted to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's really up to him to choose how many of those and which are the backups.
That's great. So now we've been staring at these screens for an awfully long time. What you're looking at right now on the screen is our tiled page menu system, which is, again, comes out of the box. You can look at multiple screens at once, and you've been looking at them for quite a long time. But what we're going to do right now is Dave's going to take over control.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually, so Chris, you saw, is running the application. I'm going to try to bring the application that Chris has onto my computer and then set myself up as a redundant server.
So this is real deal, actual SCADA configuration. Then, so this is what we do. This is what an integrator would do once they install VTScada at an application on one server. Then they would install VTScada on the next server and do what Dave is about to do now.
Yeah. So I'm running VTScada on this computer, and I've clicked on to make a new application, gone to advanced. I'm going to click here to get from workstation. And I've already, because I did this earlier, is Chris's laptop. So this is his computer name. Go next, and I can see all of the applications here that Chris has on his computer. And this wastewater demo.
So
and now this is
basically,
going to bring the application onto my computer, and then that will fire up here in a minute.
so this is a really quick way to deploy applications across networked applications. We actually don't have a section on change sets, do we?
We haven't actually put it in explicitly, but we could talk about those.
Yeah, while we're waiting for this to happen. So this is a great way to deploy a new application across multiple network servers, but a similar thing can be accomplished with VTScada using what we call a change set, which is like a zipped file containing everything that makes up a specific application. So again, you'd install VTScada on the computer first, and then you'd copy the change set to the desktop, double click on it, and it would basically install everything automatically for the application. So you could take this on a USB stick or on a CD or pull it off an FTP site and go from computer to computer and install the application that way. If you were going to have a not online, an offline, as we'd like to say,
right,
application.
Yeah, and an important thing about the change sets is that they don't actually include the application history.
Right.
So it's typically a fairly small file. The change sets are generally just a couple megabytes. The way that you see them get big more quickly is when people have added a whole bunch of custom images.
Right, because VTScada out of the box comes with hundreds of built-in images and widgets and shapes, but you can easily drag on anything that you want to. In fact, some people will go out and take a picture of their whole process, simply drag that in, make it the background, and then draw levels and things on top of that. That's a real quick and dirty way to do it.
Right, so
and that can blow up the size of your change set up.
Right, so I've got the application up here now. So we've brought over the application from Chris's computer there. And I'm just going to set this up. I'm going to go into the application configuration, and I'm going to set myself up as a server here. So you see I've got my computer name in here. I click this plus, and then you see the common server list. And I'm also going to go Chris. So laptop, I'll click the plus again. I'm actually going to make Chris the primary server.
Yay.
And apply that. So that's it. I'm going to get an alarm here. So the pull backup alarm. So this basically just said that the backup server was on. And that's because I am the backup server and I made those changes. So the second thing that we're going to do is add some security here. So it says the application is not secure. Would you like to add it? Yes. Account name, I'll make one for myself. And I'm also going to add role, make myself a super user. And these roles, you can see, we could go in, we can edit roles and other things. But for now, I'm just going to set myself up as this. And I think I checked this, internet access.
So each role is made up of typical privileges that are applicable to a specific job title, like operator or manager.
That's right. So yeah, and somebody can have several roles. So somebody could have an operator, a manager, and a super user. And if there's redundancies in which privileges are in those roles, then it has no effect on the system. It'll basically just say, yeah, okay, if you've got that 10 times, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to add Chris an account here as well. So we're going to go back into the accounts. And because I want Chris to have all the same privileges as me, I'm just going to say copy this to a new user. We'll make Chris and with a super secret password.
Is it 123?
No, but it sounds like Chris.
Is it Chris?
Sweet. So Chris has been added as a user. And now, if you go onto your computer, you should be able to actually log in there.
Okay.
So yeah, Chris is now prompted with security, so his application is kept up to date.
Great. So what you just saw was basically I had an application on my computer. Dave used his to reach to the network and pull my application onto his computer, and then set the order in the server list so that the application knows who is in charge at any given time and who is responsible for polling.
Yeah, so now we've actually got synced historians between our computers. If Chris's computer were to shut off for whatever reason, my computer would automatically become the primary for the internet server, for the alarm dialer, and for the all of the polling and history and everything. So yeah, you can see, I mean, that really is all that's required to be set up. Like, we haven't done anything before this to set this up so that it was easier to do. Really, the only reason that we're using this pre-built application is that we have I/O for you, that we don't have to add all of the devices and stuff.
Right. That's great.
So, do you want to get into some of the new 11.3 features?
Oh, yeah.
I think we've got a slide for that. You'll have to take control back.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oops, nope. Presenter, that's me. Great. So what we've been talking about, the theme that comes through all of these things is the software is completely integrated, and that makes the process like what you just saw so much easier. It's what makes synchronization so much easier, and it also means that over time, as we upgrade the application and release new versions, everything proceeds forward in lockstep. You don't have an alarm dialer that no longer communicates well with your SCADA system because they're two different products with two different upgrade streams. We are the alarm dialer. We are the internet server. So therefore, everything moves along in lockstep. And therefore, if you stay current in support, you can then download the latest version anytime. And we release the new versions pretty frequently. You may have seen some of these before if you've watched a previous presentation, but in the latest version, 11.3, we just added or are just about to add the one at the top, which is historical data import.
Yeah, this has been a big request. And it's going to be, very powerful for somebody who's moving from one system to another. Now, we've always provided as a service is the ability to help people get their tags updated and help people with tag naming and other things to basically convert their tags from their old system to their new one.
Right.
But the history data import is always one that...
It's been an engineering project. It's something that we've been able to throw our engineers at to be able to do on a case-by-case basis, but this is a built-in feature now.
Yeah, so and the way that this works is basically the customer is going to export their data out of their system into a CSV, and they'll format that into something that can be read in by our tool, and then this brings it in and then should be able to attach it to their VTScada tags, and basically they'll carry on with a whole bunch of that history,
right.
Whatever they decide to bring in.
So the idea is to, being able to convert and import the I/O tag database eliminates a lot of time and a lot of risk from the development process if you're converting from another SCADA software product to VTScada. But now you can also bring in all of that past history of your application so that when you run reports and trends, you have an uninterrupted view of the history of your process. Now, the other things you might be familiar, you'll see that in this version, we've got have a cross section. We've got something for security with OpenID Connect, which basically gives you two-factor identification. It allows you a single login for multiple systems. You've also got networking improvements because IPv4 is basically rapidly running out of addressing.
Actually, I think I don't know if we've seen it yet, but we've seen plenty of threats from some of the U.S. carriers saying that there will be no IPv4 address.
Right. We have a number of large hosted cloud-based SCADA users who use VTScada to build these cloud-based applications, and they're the ones who are the first to hear it, the warning that they're running out of IPv4. So IPv6 is going to do us for a long time.
Yeah, so in this one, from the end user's perspective, there's really nothing for them to be done.
Right.
If their system's using IPv6, it will just basically work.
Right, which is how these things ought to be. And now a lot of people are having trouble finding voice modems. This is one of the last industries to support voice modems, and we will support mechanical voice modems to the end. But if you're working in a server environment, in a virtual machine environment where having failover between, trying to have a mechanical voice modem talk to two different instances of virtual machines, that can get tricky. And also it is getting harder and harder to find.
Yeah, we also have some people who may have a system that's running on AWS or a third-party cloud.
Right.
And if you call Amazon and say, you know what, I'd really like to have a phone line run into my server, they just simply won't do it.
Right.
So Twilio is a way to basically get that voice modem, get that Win91 type service through the internet.
Right, and so yeah, that's right. It requires an internet connection. Twilio is a third-party company so you'd need a subscription from them, but we would allow you to.
I have one with Twilio.
Right.
And I believe that it costs $1 per month.
Ooh.
And about 1 penny per phone call. So it's really not that bad,
right?
When you consider that, and that includes the phone number and stuff.
That's great. So, I didn't know that. That's really cool. And the last one is IEC driver. We, as you may have heard multiple times from us, we have a built-in driver library with hundreds of different proprietary and standard communication protocols, and we're adding to that all the time. And one example of that is the IEC driver, which sort of speaks to our recent expansions into Europe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so many people have heard that we've got language coming to the software. Oh, yeah. So the IEC driver, those two paired together, are really going to help us grow out through Europe.
Right.
The IEC driver, for those who aren't familiar, is a little bit analogous to a DMP3 type protocol.
Report by exception kind of thing. And you just teased out something really big on the horizon. We don't have a slide for it, and that is multi-language support is coming very soon. And that basically will allow you to basically create your own translation for all your custom and standard screens. You can have as many languages as you wish to import, and you can do it in one fell swoop through an Excel spreadsheet, or you can do it through a very clever interface. It's really slick how they've done it. And it recognizes synonyms and multiple meanings and things. So when we showed it to one of our potential customers who really needed it, they were very impressed.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be an exciting feature.
All right, so we just blew through new slides.
Right, so we'll go back and maybe show some of the historian features.
So let's go up here to the...
So again, as you see these things tied together, like we talked about redundancy, we set up redundancy, we're going to talk about the historian here. So I just want you to kind of consider that we haven't done a lot of things to plug these together. That if you made a new application, everything that you're seeing here is basically set up like this.
Right. So these, for example, these alarm report and diagnostic screens that we're looking at, which don't look so impressive at this point because they're just demos and don't have data in them. But so you'll see that the alarms interface, which we're going to get into in a moment with the 11.2 or the ISA 18.2 standard features, the historical data viewer, built-in reports, built-in internet client monitor, which lets you see who's connecting to your system through thin clients. All of these things, and most of the things, unless we say it's a custom screen, it was built in out of the box. And if you just install VTScada, you get that. Now I'm just going to back up and actually go into a screen that we created for the trade show booth, and this is for a wastewater application. And how do you want to come at this?
I think probably, do you want to set up, maybe click into a couple of those tanks there, like the drag?
So because we have our tag database built in, anything that you draw onto the screen, and you'll see us doing some furious drawing a little later, anything that's drawn onto the screen based on a tag's value allows you to then click on that, as I am here. I'm going to click on that tank, and this tank, and this tank, and maybe I'll add a digital as well, and I'm going to open that up. And I'm going to expand that open a little bit. And so what it means is operators without administration privileges can go in and create their own custom tag groups and save them.
And Chris, what you have here, you've got these sort of laid out on top of each other, which is great if you're doing a comparison. But if you wanted to stack those, and especially with the digital and stuff, this is a great way to view it. And you can still compare the views here by running the cursor across. And again, this all comes back to like this historical data viewer is built into the application, so there's nothing to build here. But it's pulling data from the historian, it's getting the pens, it's getting everything. We didn't have to set any of this up.
We just had to create the tag, basically create a tag chain to the I/O, and it would right away begin to log to the historian. It's important to note that what you're looking at right now is we don't differentiate between historical and real-time data. This timeline is both. If we go right to the very right-hand side, you'll see that that's real-time, and if you keep going to the left, you see the entire history of that application to the point where it's instantiated.
That's right, yeah, and because this is just running on our laptops, you'll notice that it has a fairly short beginning and end.
Right. So that's one advantage to having the historian built in out of the box.
Right, so I think you've got that pause now because you're scrolling. So what if somebody wanted to add a note or add something?
Well, you'll see down here, we list all of the lines that we're looking at above, and you can go in and actually change the physical properties of the line itself. Or you could say, let's say something terrible happened right about here, and we wanted to say, say lightning hit a PLC, and we wanted to make sure that people knew that for time in memoriam. I could go in and select that point in the timeline and put in an operator note. See, hope I spelled that right. Boom. So you'll see this line now appears, and now that's an encrypted note. And you can actually create notes in a variety of different places and create a variety of different electronic operator notebooks. All of them are searchable, all of them are encrypted and can't be edited from outside VTScada in a text editor. And if you were to click on it, you'd actually see that note, and you can go in and add, kind of like you're in a forum kind of situation. I'm just going to type in some random stuff. So you can have kind of a thread, a conversation to provide context about what happened at that point in the timeline.
Cool.
And you can export, you can choose, you can export the section of the timeline that you're looking at, and you can also look at it in terms of the grid of values, which in this case is not that interesting. So again, that's and you could then take that group and save it. And do any of us create a group yet? So you can, every time a specific user can log in and open up that group to see something if they're so they can on the fly create their own really easily, or if they do something every day, they can save something.
Cool. Did you want to show some of the tags and stuff, how those are created and how those are actually attached?
Yeah. So I'm going to open up the tag database, the tag browser up here. And again, built in. I'm just going to open this up a little bit. And you'll notice right away that we've already got a number of tag trees. It's hierarchical, which means that you can actually create parent-child relationships to represent complex objects.
Yeah. And if they can see this, they'll see that there's, in this case, a wastewater plant and water treatment plant that are separated into their own, basically, tag structures.
Right.
So that'll just remember that, because that'll come up as being a little important later.
Right. And so basically you can burrow into a...
Yeah, so look at that tank 0 just for a second.
Yeah.
And then we can show here that they should be able to see all the I/O on the side there. They're getting the values, the addresses, the tag type. And any of these too, like when, because I actually put these in here, when it came to make tank 1, 2, 3, I'm actually using some parameters on the I/O. So all I have to do is copy tank 0 to tank 1, and I change one number in one place, and it updates all of the I/O and adds the new tank.
So you're not, you don't have to overload all your tag names.
That's right. So I'm not actually having to go into each of these and update them. I just update one thing in the tank settings.
And you can then also create like a parameterized page or a widget that will accept that parent tag as a single parameter and then populate all of the
yeah, and people who have lift stations and other things, that's generally what they're doing, is they'll make a tag type that has all of these in them, which essentially are shown as children tags, but really are as kind of child parameters. And so they just say, and basically make the new tag, drop it in, put in whatever the IP address or whatever it is to reach that, and then they can also draw those as a single object.
Right. Now, just for fun, I'm going to do more of this later, but just to show how to complete the loop, if I right-click on the tank level and hit Draw, it will automatically open the Idea Studio, which is the screen editing suite that's built into VTScada, and it will show me all of the widgets that are applicable to that tag type. So I'm just going to go in and look at our nice gauges, and I'm going to draw this one, and then I can drag it onto the screen and drop it and close. And then if I close the Idea Studio, you'll see that that is now committed to my screen. And the way I have my system set up right now, that change just propagated itself over to Dave's computer.
That's right, yeah.
So this is a way to propagate, a way to update applications from a single place and digitally move them across.
Yeah. Now, Chris, if you don't mind, I'm going to grab control from you. I want to get in here quickly and get in on the IS 18.2 alarms.
Cool.
So this is one thing that we don't always talk about, or that we don't hear everybody talking about necessarily. But as people are moving toward having this ISA 101 or sort of a higher performance style graphic standard, we hear them looking for the components on, okay, we want kind of things that you need to look at to really jump out.
Right.
But one of the things that ISA calls up is the ISA 18.2 standard for alarms. And we're one of the only people who actually have this built into our software by default. So the ISA 18.2 standard is really about making the alarms be readable and also making it so that somebody is able to prioritize their alarms very quickly.
Right.
That problem alarms jump out. So if you have a nuisance or something. So
because it's getting cheaper, it's cheaper and cheaper. You can put an alarm on everything now.
That's right. Yeah, data is cheap. What is and isn't an alarm is becoming that, yeah, people are having the problem now with alarm management. Right. It's not that you have one or two alarms. You know, at one time you had basically a red light or a green light.
Right.
And you'd say, okay, either there is or isn't a problem.
Right.
Now is a million things.
So complexity is really the thing that a lot of these features are, that a lot of modern SCADA systems are focusing on. How do you deal with complexity?
That's right. So built in is tools like there's a distribution of priorities here. This is basically the mindset that if all your alarms are critical, then if you have a bunch of alarms in, then you aren't really able to prioritize. So really none of them now are critical. So the idea being that we'll show the distribution of which alarms are going off at what times. We also have things like the bad actors report. So the bad actor report gives you idea of which alarms are going off. So you can see in this one, this water treatment plant, we've got a tank low alarm that's gone off 4,898 times.
It's probably fine.
So one might assume that there's some parameters here that we may want to consider updating to see if there's a problem with that alarm, or maybe there's actually a problem in the device or a problem in the
a human should go to that place and look at that thing.
Yeah, but this is probably something that needs attention. The other thing is going at the alarm list here. We can go in, we can do quick filters, different things on the priorities. We can also look at these alarms. We can grab one of these and do things like shelving an alarm, which basically says, I want to record the data for that alarm, but I don't want it doing call outs, and I don't want it showing up and beeping and blaring alarms and whatever for a certain amount of time. So this allows us to say, yeah, we're going to look at it. That'll be done by tomorrow. We don't want to forget it shelved. So we'll automatically undershelve it after a certain amount of time. I'm also going to jump back here. I want to show you the alarm dialer if I can quickly here. So I'm going to just click into this. You'll see we'll make my little smiley face get sad here. And again, with a little bit of luck, I'm using Twilio for this. So we're going out to the Twilio server. The Twilio server hopefully is going to give me a call. And that's coming in now. So I'll put it on speakerphone here.
The VTScada system. There is presently one priority alarm. Please enter your ID number followed by the number key.
So I've been called out on the system. So I'm going to put in my special passcode.
Hello, administration. The following
and now I can acknowledge the alarm from here.
1:37 and 50 seconds p.m.
So I'm just going to hang up on that guy so that we don't tie up too much time. But that's an example of using Twilio, actually. And Twilio is configured in here. I'm just going to go back and acknowledge this alarm. And I don't know if anybody's actually noticed yet, but what I'm doing here, I'll just give you guys a clue. You'll see that Chris's update hasn't been applied here. I'm actually using the thin client right now. So I'm using our HTML5 JavaScript web client, and I'm connected to one of our servers. So I'm not actually running this example from my computer, but I just wanted to do this to kind of show how seamless it is. You know, we can still do our printing of trends and other things. But if you look at this, this actually goes back a long, long ways because I'm connected to a system that's running all the time.
Yeah, if you go to our website, you can connect to this thin client demo anytime you want to, and it's been running for years. So just to be clear, VTScada, because I know this is clear to most of you, but for VTScada, thick clients are where VTScada is actually installed on your Windows PC, and you need at least one installed license to make an application. But we also allow you to connect using telephones, using browsers on computers that don't have VTScada installed, and we call those thin clients. VTScada is not installed on that device, on that iPad or what have you. That is something that's used, as Dave said, we use an HTML5 interface, which is every browser now that anybody uses.
Yes.
And as you've seen, he was using it, and you wouldn't have known the difference between that and a standard thick client runtime license.
That's right. So, and as I change my screen and other things, you can see that this is resizing to fit the screen. On your phone or whatever, you can pinch and zoom and do all those kinds of things. And actually, if you make a report like Chris did earlier, then you can actually save it to your phone, even as a CSV or something. And
actually, I don't think we made a report.
Yeah, I've got Excel on my phone and stuff, so I can actually pull the data up and either look at that or send it off or whatever it might be.
Well, while you're there, can you run a report? We haven't done that yet.
Sure.
Now, truth in advertising, the reporting page is built in. It works like a top. It's easy to use and does 90% of what most people need. But it's not the most cutting edge of our technologies. But which is why we also allow people to connect to our own historian through ODBC as if it was a standard SQL database. So you could run SQL calls against it from like a third-party reporting tool like Excel Reporter or Dream Report. But this is the interface for the reporting page, and you can see just how simple.
I'm just gonna add a few I/O in here, and we'll go from mostly sometime in March. And so it looks like I may have picked a bigger timeline than I meant to.
He's running a really big report. But that's basically how simple it is to generate on the fly a report. You can also use a very similar interface to create an actual report tag that will operates much the same way, but you can have it run automatically. So instead of having to do what Dave just did.
Great. And just to show you before I switch back to Chris here, because I think, Chris, you're going to grab control.
Yes.
Just want to put up some proof now back on my thick client here that this should be seeing Chris's update. So you can see this here, this piece that Chris added live across the systems. So now we're going to do a little bit more of that.
Yes, and
so Chris, did you want to build the page on your side so people can see you doing it live, or do you want to?
I actually already built the page, but I'm going to then show people how to import their own graphics in and then draw that on top. So
sure. Why don't you take control of that, and we'll try to get through this. It's 1:45 now.
Yes, we kind of have to move really quickly. Did I successfully take control? I don't think I did. Make presenter. There we go. Show my screen. Great. So I'm going to navigate out to the top and go into this simple page I just created. And it just shows a simple water treatment plant. Basically, we're going to build a schematic. We're going to do two things at once. We're going to tap our heads and rub our bellies. I'm going to draw for you a system diagram for that shows how scalable VTScada is, and Dave will sort of talk about that. And also, I will show you how our drag and drop Idea Studio interface works.
Right. So while Chris is drawing this, I'm going to kind of walk through a little bit more of an advanced idea of architecture. And it's not just something that's sort of up in the air as an idea of what you could do. This is something that we do have customers that are really using.
Right. So, and just to interrupt you really quickly. So I've created a folder called Imported Images, and I'm going to take all these images and just drag them into that folder. And Dave will keep talking.
So we talked a little bit about the built-in historian. We talked a little bit about the RPC manager. And this is an example of having those things as really core technologies and how those things can tie together to make actually very advanced architecture for systems that may not be huge systems and actually doing it fairly simply. So what we're going to do is we're going to start laying out a system. So we'll have a water treatment plant. We'll show how that might be architectured. You see 3 PLCs there. We're going to add a server to that. And then what we'll do is we'll show a wastewater plant. And our wastewater plant
Do I
will.
have permission to import images on this new security scheme?
You should have super user.
Super user.
If you right click there
Mm-hmm.
and say new, then just, if you can
You
go,
know what?
because image,
I might just go to the other application to start from there.
right, okay.
Ta-da! Great. So I just dragged the images, custom images, into a folder. Okay, so this is our water treatment plant. We have a server and we have 3 PLCs. Sorry, carry on.
Right. So I guess what I was saying is that what we're looking at here is, as an example, where you have a water plant and maybe a wastewater plant. Now, anytime somebody's setting one of these up, we would typically recommend that they look at having a bundle or something where they can have redundant servers on site. But that's not always possible. So we've got examples of systems where they may have a wastewater plant and a water treatment plant, and each of them can only have one server for whatever reason, but they still want that level of redundancy.
Right.
So in many cases, they're set up on a network where they can actually VPN over a reasonable speed network between the plants. And those are cases which are good examples of having an architecture where perhaps the wastewater plant is going to be responsible for its PLCs. It's going to have its own historian, and the water treatment plant is going to be responsible for its PLCs. Its server is going to have its own historian, and each of them is going to be the primary dialer and whatever for their own area. And it's quite easy in VTScada to set up a system that's actually configured that way. So what you saw was the basic historian configuration. You can do the server redundancy by device, and then you can start adding a system that looks a little bit more like what we have here. So the next part of this is that as you look at growing your system, so Chris is kind of setting up something here that says, you know, the wastewater plant is going to be the primary for its devices and also for its lift stations. In the case that the server for the wastewater plant were to go down, then the water treatment plant would take over and it would say, okay, the wastewater plant's down. I'm going to do all the polling to all of the lift stations and to the wastewater treatment plant devices. The other thing is that it would become the dialer for any kind of alarm callouts, and it would also become the thin client server. So the people at the wastewater treatment plant would be able to pick up their phones or whatever and actually log into their system and see their screens by connecting to the water treatment plant server. So the next part of this is coming up to actually growing your system. Now, it's the same install regardless of what you've done with the software. So if you want to grow or add to your system, it's really just changing your license key. So in this case, these licenses would have the tag band, I guess, to be able to cover the I/O for each in the case that they need to fail over. And that's an important differentiator because we do see systems set up in ways similar to this, where you maybe have a panel PC or you have something that's actually running, you know, sub 200 tags, and that's you've got an area of those, and those are going up to a system that is maybe a 5,000 tag, and then that you may have a few plants, and those are going up to a system that is, you know, 25,000 tags, and each of these are different levels of redundancy. Each of them have their local historians, and they basically can fail up to something that's maybe utility-wide or even municipality-wide, where they've got other reporting and other things available. And then the security privileges allow who can talk to which areas. So if somebody logs in, who has control of certain areas, and who can actually pull the data and see the pages.
Right, so they get isolated from each other. They can still be their own.
That's right. So your wastewater plant operator and your water treatment plant operators may not be able to see each other's sites, or more importantly, do control on each other's sites. But somebody at the municipal level could do reporting on all the sites and actually pull data from each of the sites.
Right.
And so some important considerations when doing this there, and one thing that people don't realize with VTScada is you can actually run many applications on a server at the same time. And when you're doing this, you could set this up as one big application and use area filtering to divide things out, or you could have two running applications.
Right.
Now, if you have two running applications, there's some considerations when it comes to the physical modems and the alarm dialer and how those are run. And if you have one big application, then there's just considerations that there's a little bit more work to set up your areas and set up your security credentials so that people are isolated to their areas.
And at that point, we actually can help advise people on that kind of system architecture of how to make the best use of what VTScada does.
Yep. And that comes to something you touched on earlier, which is Support Plus.
Right.
Support Plus being a big component of the software.
A big optional component.
And yeah, so people look at it and they say, okay, well, that gives you support. But you're also getting that ability to upgrade your system to the latest version of the software whenever you want. And as people get their systems tied out to the internet and other things, we see more and more people going out to the internet because they're trying to pull data from a third-party database, or they've got their thin clients or other things, because people want to be able to connect from their home. I mean, if the dialer calls and tells you there's an alarm, it's nice to be able to just open your computer, log into your system,
or your phone,
or your phone, or whatever, right? So we're seeing these become more and more connected to the internet. So then that upgrade period really is becoming more and more narrow, where people are looking at saying, okay, really now I should be upgrading every 2 years, every 1 year.
Because a lot of people assume that they're just going to install their SCADA software and run it until the PCs die.
That's right.
And there's a lot of risk in terms, well, you have to more or less rebuild your whole application in most cases. Whereas VTScada, because of our support for multiple operating systems, VTScada, every release of VTScada works with whatever the current latest Windows OS is. So you can basically incrementally update with far less risk and far less work.
That's right.
So you don't have a 10-year lifespan on an application.
Yeah, and when we go 11.123, it is just installing the new version over the old version, and it will actually go through and it will upgrade all of your applications to be now current with the new version.
Right. You'll need to need to test it. You still need to do your due diligence every time you do an upgrade, but the amount of risk and the amount of work is significantly.
That's right. Yeah, and I don't think I've ever had a problem upgrading where I had one of my apps stop working. So I did that for 11.123, but even big releases like going to version 12 or going to version 13, and you don't have to do every incremental step along the way. So I could go from 11.2 to say version 12 as one single step, and it will just upgrade everything for me.
That's great. So we really have to get to questions. We're a few minutes from the end, and we promised we'd answer, but we left out a few things. So I guess I'll just show them to you super quickly. One is, where is it?
Slippy Maps.
Slippy Maps. Look at them slip. So this is where we do a lot of trade shows in New Orleans.
And this is the soon-to-be even newer feature.
Yes, soon a whole new set of maps is going to be coming out that's more desaturated, that makes it a little bit easier to pull the important information about, again dealing with complexity. Also, we'll have some new features in terms of site, actual functionality of sites.
Yep, that's right.
And so that's there. That's out of the box, not an optional feature.
And would be the versions.
And the versions is the last thing we have to touch on, and that is, let's just undo everything I just did. So these are our two laptops. These are the two laptops that have had anything to do with this application, and I switched, which is why Dave's no longer connected to this application. I've switched to an older version, and you can see every revision that's ever been done. So I'm going to go back a couple of days earlier. Let's say that when I committed this change, about 10 minutes later, I looked at the screen. I've made a terrible mistake. Something terrible is happening. Alarms are going off. I can actually right-click and say, switch to this version. It will show me where you see the little numbers. It will show you where changes have been made to the code. So this code, it basically is written automatically when you drag and drop things onto the screen.
Yeah, an important thing is that it's a scripting application. So you see, as we're making updates to the application, we're actually making changes to the code. And as we roll this back, we're doing it all inside of a running application. So we never actually have to
We've been online the whole time. So if this was an actual functional application, we would not have had to shut it down in order to, and blinded you from your alarms or cut off incoming polling in order to make changes and apply even change sets. That zip file we described earlier, you can create a change set or apply a change set without shutting down the application.
Right.
So I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to write in an important note that we remembered forever in regards to that version. And now We've rolled back that change, and now you'll probably see that I didn't go back far enough. But basically, that's how easy it is to roll back a version. Try that again. Let's go back. I'm going to go all the way back here. Oops. Switch to this version. Apply. And we roll back part of it. So that's how version control works. And now we have to get to questions. So that was really fast. And we will go over now to Natasha, who hopefully has been receiving lots of different questions. Are you there, Natasha? You won't be able to hear her, but we can hear her.
Can either of you hear me?
Oh, they should.
Oh, yeah, you should be able to hear her. Yeah, so any questions?
Okay, so the first one I'm going to get you to do is Jeremy would like to see how to connect a tag to a widget, please.
Great.
Sure.
All right.
Too bad we got rid of that widget.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you can see I rolled back.
Oh, you switched to the other.
Oh, yeah, okay. So an easy way to do that would be open the Idea Studio, and I'm going to drag on a widget.
The nautical gauge.
I like that theme. And I'm just going to go link.
Right.
And that's going to open the tag database.
Right. So, and this is presuming that you've already created the tag to that IO.
And that's a good point, because some people, like we used to force our users to create the tags first, which we still think is the better way. But now you can do it in either direction. So I'm going to burrow in this case, I'm going to go into that same tree that we looked at earlier for the water treatment plant.
Grab the tank.
Go into tanks, tank 0, and go to tank level. So this is a tag that we've already created in the context of this IO tree. And I'm going to hit select. And now instead of having fake data, we have real fake data.
Right. And actually some interesting things here that you'll see is that this widget doesn't actually show the units.
Oh,
but if
right.
there was engineering units here, those engineering units would have been shown. And I don't know if anybody noticed, but the tag also updated its scaling to match the tag scaling.
I'll do that again with the units. So that's how simple it is to do that. But you could, like we showed earlier, you can also do it in the reverse order, which is to open the tag browser, go to the tag, hit draw, and then it will give you a list of only the widgets that apply to that tag. Or for that matter, you could create your whole screen the way you want it and not have, with no tags built whatsoever. And then after the fact, one by one, you could go in and create tags.
Yeah, and if you do draw something on the screen without attaching it, there's many places that VTScada has the option of showing you. You see the unlinked tag indicator. Do you want to just put your mouse over that right here?
Oh, great.
And this will show you anywhere that you've got unlinked tags drawn on the screen.
Which in this case, let's put one that isn't linked. So as you see that yellow icon means it's not linked.
Yeah, and if you actually go into the run environment, then there's an icon that shows you there as well that there's an unlinked tag on the screen. So, and that's just up here blinking in yellow.
Okay, so I did get another question come in via email. I will ask that one because he's also on the webinar.
That's great.
He wants to know if we have our own reporting package or if it's third party.
Both. Well, what we just showed you earlier, the report generator that Dave was using is VTScada and is included out of the box with all licenses.
Speaking of which, I'm going to open that.
Do you need to take control? Or shall I just
no, just carry on for a minute. I'm just going to let Excel bring this up.
So this screen here that we showed earlier, there we go. This report page is VTScada, and like I said, this one is probably due to be updated soon, but it works like a top. It's simple. It does what most people need. It has a number of built-in water, wastewater specific reports built into it, and it's very simple to simply drag tags over and then choose a time frame up here and then choose an output method. So that's built into VTScada. But also we have an ODBC, VTScada is an ODB server, which is an optional but built-in feature that allows third-party systems like Crystal Reports or Excel Reporter or Dream Reports or other kinds of information management systems. Dave's taking control, he's showing an output right now, allows them to treat our historian as if it was simply an ODBC database. So they can run SQL calls against it and to pull that data into their running systems.
Right. So not that I've got necessarily useful data here, but basically what I grabbed earlier was sort of a bunch of random stuff, and showing that right now is that
that's great.
This was actually downloaded through the Thin client.
Oh, right.
So
that's why it was.
We grabbed this off the internet.
That's cool. I should say, since we're at 2 o'clock, we're gonna stay on here. We're gonna tractor pull to the end and answer every single question we can. But if anyone needs to jump off, I want to say thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you. We know your time is valuable, and you will get the answers to all of the questions that we talk about in the follow-up email. And I'm going to take control here. So if you're leaving now,
okay,
thanks a lot.
If you do have any questions, get them in, submit it now. As Chris said, we'll continue to answer them as long as you continue to type them. But Tim did bring up a question about downloading VTScada, the demo, and start using it after 90 days. Does it allow like a 2-hour demo mode to allow for development before you get a fully featured VTScada license? So I thought this could be a good time that you could talk about the difference between VTScada Lite and the VTScada demo that you can get on our website.
Great, sure. Yeah, so I guess it was the question that after the 90 days?
So he's asking if after the 90 days, if there still is a time period, I guess, to demo the software. And Tim, if I didn't ask that question the way you intended it, if you wouldn't mind just sending me a quick note.
Right. So after the 90 days, I mean, if you've already used that 90-day period, but you need the software to do up a demo to show to somebody else in your company or whatever, then please get in touch with us and we'll try to help you out with that. As an alternate, we do have software called VTScada Lite, which is the exact same install as VTScada. However, it's limited to a 50 tag license, and it doesn't allow you to do the alarm dialing.
But it's an industrial license. You could actually install it at a customer site. It's free, it's 50 IO, and it will run indefinitely, not just in a restart every X number of hours. So what we're looking at on the website here is under the Try It menu, you can go to the 90-day trial, which the caller was talking about. And here you'd fill out a form and we'd send you a license for 90 days. I think a 5,000 tag license with alarm dialer and everything.
Yeah, it allows you to try out all of the features of the software and actually build up a reasonable sized tag database. And one thing is that if you do build an application here, you can't then move that straight into a runtime. It does need to go through a paid development license.
Right, but what you can also do is with the email that gives you the key after you fill out the form, then you also get a link to a change set for a demo. So you can import this demo in and actually start playing around with that.
Yeah, and actually it is the demo that we use today, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It's exactly the same one. And so like Natasha said, there is a difference between our 90-day trial, which is a much larger tag count, much more unlocked functionality, but a limited time frame, and VTScada Lite, which I'll click here on the VTScada Lite page. And you'll notice in the documents, there should be a list of documents in the GoToWebinar interface on the right-hand side that you can download. One of them is the everything from soup to nuts data sheet. And one of them is specifically on VTScada Lite. It's basically the information you see here. VTScada Lite's 50 IO. You can download it here, no form. You don't have to give your name or your email or anything, and you can use that license until the end of time.
Right. Yeah, and if you are considering buying, note that the pricing is up on the website.
Right.
So.
Oh yeah, that's another thing we should point out. I'm going to go to the software pricing, and this will bring up the pricing for your area. Also, there's a really great video that Dave has created to sort of describe it at the top of the page. So this is our licensing. This is our pricing. It's right there. You don't have to fill out a form. Anybody can look at it. Because we don't think that's the kind of thing that needs to be hidden. And it's as simple as basically the table at the top of the form. This is the business end of this price list. It talks about our tag bands. There is my mouse development and runtime licenses, of which you need at least one to have an application. And then you can add alarm notifications or add data sharing if you're using a runtime, and then thin clients. It's as simple as that.
Okay, and Richard asked, is IP camera support possible?
Yes, and I don't have an application right here I can show you, but Brian in Florida has a number of customers who use camera interfaces in their SCADA system.
Yeah, they may have talked to our engineering group on that. So I think it's yes, but it depends.
Yes, so, it's functionality that we've created.
If it's crucial for you, please get in touch with us, and we can either look at the cameras you have or look at see what we've got. But we do have several customers doing it. So yes, it can be done.
We have a team of engineers on hand, not because we want to, compete with any of our integrators, but simply for things like this custom functionality that might be more difficult and less cost-effective for our integrators. We can do that on a case-by-case basis. So VTScada is built to have all these things out of the box, but also because of the built-in scripting language, which is our scripting language. You can basically customize any kind of functionality that you want.
Yep,
I think that's fair to say.
Yep.
Okay, and yeah, I've got one here that states we are an old client of VTScada and are currently using version 11.1.22. It's not that old. We still have people out there running much older versions.
Yeah, I was getting ready for like 7 or
web.
I know. I love saying you're old at 11.1. But so you had mentioned earlier that the thin client is HTML5, and presumably it does not need any more ActiveX component. Does it come with the version 11.3 only?
No, I believe it was 11.2 that. So what you're looking for is the Anywhere client. So we still do have the ActiveX.
That might not be there. There might be another useful yet confusing option, which is the MIC, which was introduced before the Anywhere client, which is also HTML5.
Yeah. Yes, but the MIC is the MIC basically takes all of the tags that are on a page, gives them to you in a list view.
I can actually show you what that
looks like.
So this is So basically, what it does is this is before iPads really came about, and phones were really small. Like the first iPhones had really tiny screens. So to try to duplicate, the entire display there was we hadn't developed that yet, but B, would have been crazy trying to see it all. So this basically gives you a list of tags, as you can see here. You can see the values down the side, and you can manage alarms, and you can actually use your finger. It's quite nice, actually. You tap on any one of those values, and then you can swipe back and forth with your finger.
Sure. Did you want to bring up the internet client settings so we can just show somebody how they can see how to get to any of these URLs?
Yeah.
So Chris is just bringing up the.
So this is the application manager where you see we're in sales, so we have 1 million different not running applications. But down at the bottom here, you'll see the internet client configuration dialog.
Yeah, and if you look at this, maybe just show the VIC, the MIC, and the Anywhere, and then we can describe which is these.
Okay. Now so I set up.
I don't. Okay.
I think I might need to add a realm. I'm just going to create. I'm going to set up a thin client.
Yeah. The funny thing is, you're actually setting up the whole thin client. Just check to see if you have a server there.
Oh, I don't.
And then put in your computer name.
All right.
Great.
Now you all know my computer name.
Well, we already went through it.
Yeah, that's true.
And then if you apply that.
I have to.
Go ahead.
Do I need to apply that first?
I'm not sure.
Let's apply that. Ta-da. Now I've created a realm, and now I'm going to choose an application to add to that realm.
Let's see if we can do this one that's running. We might be able to show it.
Where's
wastewater demo there. That's it. Or practice
Yeah,
is what I'm running
so,
right
boom,
now.
I click. So this is the application that we've been working on. I hit OK. I hit apply.
Right. So now you'll see that there's 3 URLs there. The VIC one is the ActiveX,
which we still support.
we
So on a
still
Windows
support that.
computer, we do that. And the MIC, which is or the Anywhere is the one that we've been talking about.
Yeah, the Anywhere is the one that you saw earlier. And you're actually going to be Chris, and then your super secret password.
Right.
So when Chris actually just configured this thin client and now is running the application he was showing you using the HTML5 in Chrome.
So that's how you configure thin clients. Ta-da!
Okay, perfect.
So Chris, did you want to?
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to suggest that we might want to show the
MIC. Yeah. So we could show the VIC, which we've had forever, the Anywhere client, which is made for larger screens, and then this one that we were just describing.
This is really designed for a smaller screen.
Right.
So you're just going to see it in like a huge list.
Yeah. Sort of squeeze it to make it look like an iPhone screen.
You may have to refresh that, but go ahead.
And I'm going to go into industry demo application. So it'll just basically retrieve the tags, and you can scroll up and down, and I can select tags. So that
and open up trenders.
Yeah, to open up trends. And not all these things have useful data here. But that's what that looks like. Again, simple, simple, simple. Makes great use of bandwidth, data bandwidth, and also screen size. So you've got 3 options for your thin clients.
That's great.
So in 11.1, you had this one, and also the ActiveX that I think you referenced.
Right. So
and then it's 11.2 moving forward that you have the ability to do the Anywhere.
There's too many options. So, but the short answer is you do have access to an HTML5 version. It's this simple one that we're showing you right now.
And if you do decide you want to upgrade and you haven't been paying support with us, remember that you still do have quite a bit of value in the software that you have.
Right.
So there'll be a credit there, basically, if you decided to upgrade. You're not just buying it as if it's a brand new license.
That's true. Sorry, Natasha. Thanks for waiting.
No, that's okay. So I just have one more question in the queue right now. So if anybody else has any other questions, go ahead and send them in, because we'll continue to answer them as you send them. But David joined us today, and he said he had limited SCADA knowledge, so he came to the right place. And he was uncertain of some of the terms that we were using. And so he had asked if our videos on YouTube cover the basics. So I thought this could be a time that you could explain to some options that we have for training and our videos and whatnot on the website. Sure.
Did you want to maybe navigate off to the
YouTube?
Well, I was going to say first our Trihedral page.
No, yeah, that's. All right, great. And under resources, so if you go to our website under resources, you will see SCADA video tutorials. And Andrew Harvey is the gentleman who created all of our online help. The help is electronic. It's built into VTScada. It gets leaps and bounds better every release. He's really done some really great work.
Yeah, and actually there is an upgrade to the help files coming that's going to tie in a whole bunch of the documentation and a lot of the tutorials and other things and build all those right into the help files. So they're, it's good now. It's going to get even better.
So yeah, great. That's a good point. I'll come back to that. So these are tutorials that he created. He put a video camera up and he worked his way through most of the hits of the operation and configuration course in terms of how do you create an application, how do you connect to your I/O, how do you draw things to the screen. Now, in terms of basic SCADA monitoring and control terminology, I'm not sure what the best way.
Yeah, I'm not.
Let me go at it this way then. So if you go into documentation on our website, you can actually open Andrew's help from our website if you don't have VTScada installed on your computer.
And an important thing is that if you do have VTScada installed, it's F1.
Oh yeah.
You should probably guess. And it's also contextual. So if you're trying to think about, let's say I'm trying to configure something Modbus,
Right.
then open up a new Modbus tag, get to even the little box that you're trying to enter in, be it the address or something, and then hit F1 there, and it'll take you straight to the most relevant help, or hopefully the most relevant.
So this is what the current version of Andrew's help looks like. And up in the top right-hand corner here, you have a tutorial. So if you have the 90-day trial, I don't think there's quite enough tags in the VTScada Lite license, but the trial would give you enough to actually work your way through the tutorial in a fairly short period of time. So that would give you a grounding in a lot of the core concepts, and I think you would pick up a lot of the terminology along the way.
Yeah, and we do have some YouTube videos as well. We've got videos on things like connecting to some of the Allen Bradley PLCs.
Oh, yeah.
We've got quick videos on doing things like setting up for multiple monitors. There's a number of little things like that that are just kind of floating around the internet. So feel free to check out our YouTube channel.
Yeah. So I hope that helps.
And that's it for me right now. There are no other questions. So
Just to close one more loop, he mentioned training. So if I go back to the get back to the website. If you go to resources and SCADA software training, you will see upcoming courses listed here.
Oh, right. Come see us in Bedford in like 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. So we got a course coming up for operation and configuration. You can register right here online. And that also, if you scroll further down, you can actually find the course outline and the workbook. So you could actually walk your way through the course yourself anytime. You can download what you need here and just carry on and let us know how you made out. We do have integrators and users who have learned to use the software in this way.
That said, people who take the course with us, I think generally do find that it's quite valuable. And just to jump back to, if you are interested in the course, I think it's $1,000 if you want to come and take our operations configuration course. And that's really great for both system integrators and users who are relatively new to the software and looking to get an orientation to it. And then we have the advanced course. And the advanced course is offered a little bit less often. But the advanced course for system integrators especially gets much more of a deep dive into some of the more advanced topics. But it also, if you're showing up on our system integrator page, it gives you that advanced certified key. So it gives you a little bit of a differentiator for customers who might be looking at the website on system integrators to call to do development or upgrades to an application.
And also, I guess now we should probably wrap this up, unless there's anything else. And that is, we would like you to invite you to enroll now for VTScada Fest. If you're going to be available in January coming and would like to slip away to sunny Orlando and really get to not just learn about VTScada, but really meet a large number of the people who actually develop. You'll watch presentations by people who actually created the features they're talking about. And I got to watch a lot of the videotapes last year. Unfortunately, the sound wasn't very good, but so we can't really share them. But they were really great, and people really appreciated meeting the team.
Yeah, and a lot of the features from VTScada Fest last year are features that are probably forecast to come out, basically a year from now. So you're really getting that, up and coming stuff from people like Glenn, who's the president of the company, talking about the stuff that he's working on. So it's pretty neat to see some of the stuff that's coming, and it allows you to help plan. Maybe you say that version 12 is something that you're interested in. There's some features there that are going to be real money savers or something for you.
Yeah.
So knowing those are coming can help with budgeting and other things.
And there is a developer's den, which is basically a lounge where you can come and sit down in a comfortable chair and talk to people who do support for VTScada, who do development for VTScada, who are actual R&D people, and you can actually personally ask questions that have been nagging you, or find out about better ways of doing things if you've always suspected there were. And that's something that we went over really big last year.
That's right. Yeah. And Chris and I are also, over the next few months, hoping to put out some videos where we're going to take on a specific case be it something like area filtering or something, and we're going to try to put together little webinars that'll basically just show us walking through very specific development tasks.
Because it's one thing to watch, listen to us talk about things, but hopefully it was helpful today when we could actually show you how to create redundancy between two computers, or actually show you how to develop screens in VTScada. And so, yeah, we hope to do more of that, where it's less talking, more doing, show, don't tell.
Right.
And I think that's it. Again, thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. If you have any additional questions, send them in sort of right away, because we're usually trying to get these things out as quickly as possible. And if you're a little unsure about some of the answers, then feel free to follow up with us. You'll be sent out, again, a transcript with all of the questions answered.
And that's it. Well, thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.